My intention with this video is to show you just how easy this process can be. So don't worry if this goes too quickly. I'll be breaking this all down into much more detail with separate videos for each of the steps in guide number 2. And I further break each step down to explain more options, caveats, and advanced techniques in guides 3 through 9, which are separate guides for each of the steps from finding the right template to an introduction to video editing. So there's a lot to cover here. But for now, just sit back and follow along as I create a simple project for you. What we're going to do is we're going to find our template first. It's this one. And just to review, we start out with my logo, and then an image comes in, and then there's a message that comes over the image. So logo, image, message. So all we have to do is click on this, and we'll go into the work area. And here we're going to see that thing flash by us again. Logo, image, message. But the message is just kind of generic here. And what we have to do is to bring in assets, that's what we call them anyway, to enhance this and make it our own. Because we can't use this video as is. Not only would it not make any sense because it's a really generic message, but we don't have access to any of the assets that were used in this. So that picture is not available to me. That logo is not available to me. And I could type those text messages in if I wanted to, but what's the point? So let's define some other things here. What I'd like to do is to split this into two halves and say that on the right side, where we're seeing our template flash things by us right now, let's call that the preview area. And then on the left side, this is what we're going to call the asset assignment area. In other words, we're going to be putting in the things that we want to add to this. And the asset assignment area has 4 different parts in general. There's an images part, a texts part, colors part, and an audio part. So we have various things we'll put into each of these areas. Not every template requires each of these things. So for any template that you choose, you may not see all 4 of those things appear. Only the ones that you're going to need to fill in are going to appear. On the other hand, you may have a dozen or more images and a dozen or more text things and all kinds of colors that you might want to assign. I've chosen a very simple example for this reason. It does have 2 images though, but again, the reason that I did this is because one of these is a logo and one of these is a standard image. A logo is expected to be a square image. It's expected to be basically the icon that's a part of your logo. You may have a logo that's actually much bigger and very wide or very tall because it has other text in it that may stretch it out a little bit. What we're looking for here is essentially an icon of some kind. You can still have text in it, but it still has to fit into that square format. That doesn't mean that it has to be a square, but it has to have roughly the same height as it has width. On the other hand, this image over here, in our case, it's a standard ratio of width to height. So it's saying here that we're looking for ideally a width of 2048 pixels by 1150 pixels. And that would be a great thing. That's exactly what they expect us to put in here. On the other hand, we can have it the same ratio. And just so you know, that ratio is a standard in the industry right now. It's 16 by 9 ratio. So that's the old widescreen video format that all cell phones or most cell phones, most cameras these days will shoot images and will shoot video in that format. And this is a landscape format because the width always comes before the height. The width is greater than the height, so therefore landscape format. What I want to do then is go out and get a logo that I have here. So I have to click on this, which opens up another window for going out and selecting the image. And I'm going for a logo here. Now, I could upload a file if I want to, and then this would take me into my file system and let me go and navigate and eventually find something that I want. I can also go to any of these 3 well-known image sources, basically. These are websites that have free, royalty-free images. Free, meaning we don't have to pay for them. Royalty-free, meaning that we don't have to pay royalties for the use of those images. Now, in this case, I'm looking for an image of an athlete. Well, in my work, I work with a lot of actually Olympic athletes, or I know a lot of them anyway, and I have lots of pictures of them. But I would still have to attribute them. I would have to get their permission basically to use their images, and I don't want to do that. So I went out to Pexels and got a nice image, and we'll see that image in just a little bit. Right now, though, I want to go to my library, and let me first show you my full logo. Notice that this is a very wide logo. It's going to be really small when I get in here because the image that we put in here is going to be constrained within the space that we give it by the width in this case, meaning that the height is going to be really small and it's going to be about that size. People aren't going to be able to see that too well. So what I want to do instead is use a different logo that I have. I do want the name of my business in here. So I have a logo that's not just the icon, but it also has the name in kind of a circle around that icon. And I think that's going to be the best one for me. And then go after the image that I found on Pexels, young woman running. And it's not quite the same height to width ratio, but it's going to be adjusted anyway by the system. So hopefully it will cut off a little bit of the top and a little bit of the bottom, but we'll see the important part, which is the figure in the center. So much for the images. Let's go into the texts then. And I have 3 texts that I have to put in here. The first one I want to put in, I'm going to put this in all caps. And the message that I want to state, I just want to call sports performance. And then little ellipses here because I'm going to continue with the thought. And then the next thing is going to be in upper and lowercase, just regular sentence case. But I'm going to start it with an ellipsis, which means that I'm continuing with the sentence. And then I'm going to say relies on more than exercise. Oops. I have to look at what I'm doing. Exercise and practice. Making smart food and nutrition choices is key to performance. And then an exclamation point. So we'll see if I have any typos in there when we go to preview this. And then another thing in all caps, and in this case, I want that little thing down at the bottom, instead of saying order now, I want it to say contact us. So those are my 3 text things. If I'd been really on top of things, I would have put together a text document that already had those things printed out, so I could just go and copy one line, paste it in, copy another line, paste it in, and so on. Now for the colors. So I do want to keep the background gray color on the logo here. I also don't know whether any of that is bleeding over. This image comes in on top of that other image. So it's blocking out my logo, but notice that that didn't go away. I'm just putting that on top here. So I don't want to make any kind of weird color that might bleed through or something in case there are any transparent areas in my image. The title color, however, I do want to have a nice bright red color to go with her running outfit. And in fact, I'm going to use the red a couple of more times in here. The text color, on the other hand, I'd rather have kind of a medium green, almost a dark green. That'll show up well. And then this color that I have right here, the hexadecimal color is actually right there. And so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that in a couple of places. Well, the order now text color I want to be almost white, like that is. It's very, very, very light gray. But the frame color for that, the little box that it's in, is where I want to have this red color. Let's put that there. And then I want a slightly different red color, a little bit more muted perhaps, for the paper tear. Actually, let me go to more red and make it a little bit more subdued. Still red, but not quite as red. And then we'll not deal with the audio because you can't hear the audio anyway in the recording. So let's just preview this. That's our next step because we want to check our work so far. It finds key locations within this video. In this case, there are 3 key things. There's the icon in the first place, there is the main picture, and then there's the picture with the overlay over it with the text on the overlay, that torn piece of paper. And so what we want to do is make sure that all of that is okay, that the image works out well, that my text is all spelled correctly and what I want to say. And if it is, then we'll go ahead and create that. So there's the first image that came in. That's the icon. Then the third image came in second. And finally, the middle image came in. So let's take a look at the images. There's that image. And notice that her feet were cut off and some of the sky was cut off. So it did narrow that down a little bit. I think that was an old 4:3 type image rather than the 16:9. But that's okay. So we're still getting the main part of this, the person, put some humanity into this. And then on the third one, we've got the overlay. So here's our red sports performance, the green text in the middle here, the red contact us, and the slightly reddish, a little bit darker than pink, paper tear edge. So let's make sure that everything is spelled correctly. As in practice, make smart food and nutrition choices. Yeah. Okay, great. I'm all set. So if I needed to make some changes, again, let me warn you that you want to make sure that everything is fine. So double and triple check things before you click that create button. Because as soon as you click that create button, you have just used one of the renders that you prepaid for. There is a way to come back and edit, but the edit is not an edit like in a word processor or something where you're just going and cleaning things back up again. It actually will start a second project with the same resources that you had in the first. So that create, when you click it, is going to count as a render as well. And so there's no reason to pay twice for doing the one job. Just be sure that you check your work, double and triple check your work here before going ahead and clicking the create button. At this point then, we jump back to the main screen. Notice that now this is our new video that is being rendered, and we're seeing a little progress bar for the render here. Right now we're making 0 progress, but that will go along in short order. And I'm going to cut out some of this in just a moment so that you don't have to sit and wait for the whole thing. So when I see you again, we're getting close to the end here now. There's just a little bit more cleanup that the rendering engine has to do, and then we're all set. The finished project is still only available on the server itself. We have to download it from there, but we'll have the ability to do that. And there we are. So now the download is ready for us, and there are 2 different downloads that we can get. There's a movie download, which will include the audio with the video, and then the animated GIF that we can use in emails and other similar things, electronic newsletters that we send out and so on. That doesn't require any special player because animated GIFs will just be appropriately played in any kind of situation like that within an email by the email client. It's just treated as any other kind of image file. So let's go ahead and download this MP4. Screen flashes a little bit, but that's how it goes. And as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and download the animated GIF as well. And if we want to see that, we can see that in a couple of different ways. I'm going to attempt to bring this in from my file system, and it should open up just the downloads window. There it is. And there's my video. Or if I wanted to see that in a normal video player, then I could open that instead, and that will launch the video player. And there it is again. Full size this time. This is named for the template that it was in. So it's torn paper 1 horizontal video.mp4. On the other hand, the GIFs are all named video GIF. As a matter of fact, apparently I already have another video GIF open, so it gave that an extra name. And it will continue adding more integers to that if I don't clear all those things out. But again, I can do the same thing to show it in the Finder. Notice that this begins playing automatically, and it will loop through everything. The real movie video will play one time when I click on it, and then that's the end of it, but this just will keep cycling. So that's it. That's how easy it is to make a really nice video. Now, there are others that are much more complex than this and longer than this one, and there are some that are even simpler. I didn't use those because they didn't give me the opportunity to demonstrate enough things. But in guide number 2, we're going to break this down further, and I'll tell you a lot more about each of those steps, from finding a video template in the first place to going through all of the different steps. So the images step and things to be aware of there, the text step and things to be aware of. Because in many of these things, we can choose the font that we want to use as well as other things. That wasn't in this video, but you'll see that we can also choose the font that we want to use. And there are ways of making the text essentially empty if we don't want a specific part of the text to appear. So we can just have it not appear. There are all kinds of other things to be aware of there too. There are also some things that will be important to be aware of and to prepare yourself for using the colors. There are ways that you can store, not within Video Clip Builder, but with some other tools that you can install, that you can store your entire branding set of colors if you want to, and have those immediately available. And we'll talk a little bit more about hexadecimal color numbers and all that kind of stuff. So onward to other things. There are a couple more things I want to say in this guide, and let's get to it.